not just because elderly people tend to eat shit on stairs. That evening, Alice and her drug addict sister Zoe drive to their new rental house. They soon arrive at the spot and meet of taxidermy animals. She suddenly gets a call from an unknown number. She picks it up only to hear the voice of her mother. The poor woman apologizes for her past behavior. Alice, who is clearly moved by her mother's pleas, hangs up without saying anything. Gives Alice to her first client, her young daughter Isabel from the home, and warns that on their way the duo drives through a neighborhood named the city was built around meat packing plants. Joseph Peach. He hated being named after his workers lived in Butcher's Block until one day when Joseph suddenly to run out of work and it was eventually shut down. Come down here alone during the day or the night. Workers arrive at the Marcus household and Tanya and advises her not to resist the local authorities. Everyone in the room, a young is watching them through a peephole in the wall. Moments later, Alice visits Isabel's bedroom and Smart Mouth written on it. Playground in Medallion Park. As the two continue chatting, she notices a hole in the wall. She peers inside and immediately calls her colleague. Seconds later, there's something inside the wall. When suddenly, the bedroom door closes. Duo soon hears Tanya screaming, run to the living room. They look all over the place, or the daughter. Two social workers call up the lead officer from the local house with his partner. He figures that the officers don't see anything malicious in this. As soon as they arrive, the sisters are welcomed. Diane. Her hands are bloody and she is forward without any warning, but Alice pulls her off, and the siblings, after searching the house thoroughly. Zoe, meanwhile, sits on the porch and passes the time by lighting a cigarette. However, shortly afterwards, she sees it, assumes that the figure is Isabel, rushes towards Medallion Park, where she sees the ladylike tree. It is huge, and a creepy, crying face of a woman is drawn on its bark. There is also an old wooden shack nearby, with children. Family used to own the park. Before Alice can ask any questions, the old man bids farewell and quietly walks away. Into Medallion Park, she continues to run after it until they reach a long white marble staircase, and we see that it is eating some animal. It is named Smart Mouth, which takes Zoe by surprise. Creeped out, however, he stops seconds later. A figure known as Pestilent God appears, then walks up the stairs and enters the door along with the stairs are gone. The next morning, Zoe returns waiting for her. The sisters there, Zoe vaguely tells her sister, inside or outside of her head, declares that she is going to leave this god-forsaken town forever. Alice desperate. Zoe storms out with her suitcase and apologizes for being loud. She explains the house, but says that trying to keep the conversation paper clippings pinned to a nearby notice board gone missing from the town in recent years. In fact, all these people, she explains that the Peach, but Louise thinks some of them are still hanging around. Suddenly, Alice's eyes fall on an old newspaper. Peach. To her utter horror, she realizes that this is elsewhere. Joseph approaches Zoe at a bus stop and introduces himself. It is evident the next morning Zoe saw something terrifying, and the two then head to the spot and soon arrive at there. Alice sees a red-robed distance. She thinks it might be Isabel, landlady, all alone, to a man who is wearing a 1950s style suit, bending sight. A long marble staircase. The child and the man then walk up the stairs, confused and shocked. Alice a pitched buzzing noise. Sometime later, Louise wakes Alice up, finds Zoe standing in the conservatory. Meanwhile, near a local junkyard, when suddenly Diane lands on the hood of their car, who is wearing a 1950s style suit. He's, "Get a load of this one, sweetheart." Luke quickly shoves him to the ground, but the man continues to chuckle creepily. He reveals that his name is Robert Peach, and that nonetheless, the police officer takes Robert to the station. Luke then heads out to track the lady who is doesn't find her, and has to return in a shocking turn of the station to a sight straight completely naked, feasting on his fellow pleasure. Pause. Sometime later, a team of other father, who turns out to be the police chief, all for mental evaluation. However, the chief's closest officers escort Robert out, drive away. Robert walks into the park like nothing happened, and a curious Luke follows him in. He soon reaches the playground and sees Robert walking up along with another old man, and Alice are having a conversation when they hear something. They head to the spot only to find Alice opens it, and we see that it and drinks at the playground. Invites the women to join him and the others. The house suddenly appears around them, people as members of the Peach family. Elder son Robert, his giant friend James, their grandmother Ruth. Unfazed by all of this, Alice simply smiles at her. Then the candle chemicals, and the family disappears. Alice now finds herself sitting alone at the there will be no pain and minimal blood, and cuts into Alice's skull. Blood drips down onto her, gives her a mirror, and asks her to take. Notices that a plate of her to her own brain. Joseph, meanwhile, calmly he warns her that if this wakes up, just like her mother and sister, his daughters, before vanishing into thin air. Alice discovers that her skull is intact and everyone but Louise is gone. Meat of severed body parts. In the aftermath, both the women run away from the table, the human flesh, and even that. At home, Zoe is in the bathtub there, sitting on the edge of the tub. Feel better if she eats something. They come across Luke, who has been investigating the area, up a long marble staircase last night, already too disturbed, and walks on. Alice's coworker Nathan waiting for them and goes inside. Alice then rushes. Despite the hot weather, Zoe has the sheets and a blanket. Zoe's leg is profusely bleeding, and we see that Zoe has been taken. Alice is by her bedside. Just then, Louise gets a call from Luke. It turns out he too is visiting the hospital. Louise and Nathan head. Shortly afterwards, the duo meets Luke in the up. He explains that his father's men set a killer case and vanished behind a door alongside an old man. Robert arrives right outside the cafeteria, dances away like nothing weird is happening, so he draws his gun and immediately goes after them. Upstairs, Alice and Zoe are having a we see that Zoe had cut into her thighs, picked a and hesitantly eaten it through the hospital for Robert, but they end up by the criminal. Robert manages to separate before swiftly slitting his throat, orders him down on the floor. Surprisingly, Robert complies and laughs like a maniac. On the other hand, Alice is also visions. She rushes out to the hospital's benzodiazepine. Instead, there is a note from Joseph on the bed that also urges Alice. In the meantime, Luke drives to the police station and stays calm as if he just didn't. This pushes Luke over the edge, and he decides to take a radical step. He whips out the gun, times in the chest, to the playground in search of her sister. And she sees Joseph leading Zoe up door at the end, with climbs the stairs herself on a cliffhanger.